Many problems linked with native and non-native distinction are caused by the difficulty we have in defining the native English speaker who uses the standard language. If we consider the educated middle class native of the UK as the target or the model that we can use as the native English speaker, native speaker of the standard English, even then we have many problems. If it is the educated middle class Englishman who is the standard, then which accent? Because in the UK itself, there are very few people who use a received pronunciation, even among the educated middle class people. And not only that, the accent changes every few miles in England or in the UK. Similarly, which social group are we talking about? Are we talking about businessmen? Are we talking about educated professionals, doctors, engineers? Who is our target native speaker or our model native speaker? Similarly, which age group are we talking about? We know very well that the language changes, the use of the language among the older users of the language and the younger users of the language is very different. Similarly, the use of standard English among older people and the younger people in England itself is very different. So we cannot really easily and neatly define the native speaker of standard English. Because of this difficulty in defining the native English speaker, many alternatives have been proposed. Alternatives to this native-non-native distinction. One alternative which was proposed by Rampton is that of the use of the term expert instead of the native speaker. So he suggests that we can use the term expert to refer to an accomplished, successful, proficient user of the language. There are many advantages of using the term expert in place of the native speaker. One advantage is that expertise is not identity. The kind of closeness or the emotional attachment that the word identity or the word native suggests, the closeness with identity that native suggests, the word expert does not include that kind of closeness or emotional attachment. Another advantage of the term expert is that it is learned and not innate. For example, in terms of native English speakers, their proficiency or the command of the language is considered innate, genetic. But in case of an expert, the expertise is always learned and improves with practice. It is not innate. Expertise is also relative. For example, what may look like an expert to me may not look like an expert to you. And then there are also variations in the degree of expertise. Expertise is also partial. We cannot really say, or no one can actually claim to be a complete expert in a particular field. Another advantage of the word expert, the term expert, is that to become an expert, you have to go through different processes of certification, evaluation, etc. So expertise is evaluated. It is not innate, or you cannot just claim that you have it. It is evaluated, and only then you are granted the status of an expert. There are also disadvantages. One disadvantage, actually not many, but just one disadvantage, that if we compare an expert with a non-expert, the two terms then again imply value judgment. For example, if one is non-expert, we are suggesting that the person is not good enough. Another alternative, which was suggested by well-known world English scholar Jennifer Jenkins, defines the whole paradigm in terms of monolingual English speakers, bilingual English speakers, and non-bilingual English speakers. When monolingual English speakers, what Jenkins means is users of English who know no other language but English. Bilingual speakers of English are the users of English who know English but who know one or more other languages than English. So in addition to English, they know one or more languages, and they know these languages with considerable competence. They have the competence of, let's say, monolingual English speakers, and then we have non-bilingual English speakers, which means bilingual users of English who know English and other languages, and their competence in the English language is reasonable. They may not be as competent as the monolingual speakers of English, but they have reasonable competence and can make do with in different situations. The advantages of this alternative or this reconceptualization of the native non-native distinction is that compared to native non-native distinction, MES is less favorable than BES. So monolingual English speakers, according to this paradigm, are not favored compared to bilingual English speakers, because apparently monolingual English speakers know just one language, whereas bilingual English speakers know many languages, or at least two languages. So in a way, the MES are at an advantage compared to bilingual English speakers. Similarly, this bilingual English speaker distinction, bilingual English speaker categorization removes the distinction between L1 and L2 speakers. So according to this reconceptualization of the nativeness paradigm, we do not distinguish between L2 users of English or L1 users of English when we talk about bilingual English speakers. We only call them bilingual English speakers and are not concerned about the distinction, the L1 L2 distinction. But there is a disadvantage as well of this alternative, and that is the determining of the difference between bilingual and non-bilingual competence. What is the criteria which determines the competence of a bilingual and against that of a non-bilingual English speaker? So how do we determine, and on what basis, that a person who's bilingual has better language skills, English language skills, than a person who is a non-bilingual speaker of English?